Okay. Hello and welcome to today's virtual program. Today we are going to go over how to design a website in InDesign. So thank you again for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started. So hello and welcome to Grow Your Business with Adobe Creative Cloud. Today we will be focusing on Adobe InDesign and designing a website. My name is Caitlin Tips, and I will be assisted by my chat facilitator today, Jessica. Please say hi, Jessica.
Hello.
So some ground rules before we get started. Your mics have been muted on purpose. If you have program-related questions you would like to ask, please do so in chat, which can be accessed at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Your text will only be seen by panelists, not all attendees. Any inappropriate behavior will result in your removal from this virtual program. We will try to answer the questions as we go along, but there will be time for Q&A after the lesson is over. A recording of this class will be sent out at a later date. So today we will be covering the basics of setting up your InDesign workspace and designing a very basic wireframe and prototype of a website in InDesign. This class is meant for intermediate users. However, all users of skill levels are welcome. So we will be using Adobe InDesign to format and lay out all of our aspects for today's project. If you don't have access to Adobe InDesign at home, we do have Adobe Creative Cloud at all 5 of our library locations, and it is available free for usage with a library card. However, if you still are not comfortable with InDesign, there are numerous other options for designing websites. There is no professional standard resource for designing a website. So you can definitely take the skills that you were learning in this class and apply it to many other resources out there. So with that in mind, let's get started. So first and foremost, what is Adobe InDesign? It is an industry standard publishing application for print and digital media. InDesign allows for ease of access for page layout and web design, and it's useful for creating flyers, books, magazines, newspapers, interactive PDFs, and more. In this case, the more is laying out your website. Now that brings me to my next point. InDesign is not a robust coding platform. In fact, whenever you think website creation, InDesign is typically not at the forefront of what you would think to use. There are other tools in the Creative Cloud Toolkit that assist in the coding portion of website creation, first and foremost being Dreamweaver. However, the great thing about InDesign is that it does allow for the exporting of your designs to HTML, and it retains quality web graphics. This is because you are able to work in pixels in InDesign, but still have it follow a vector-based platform. So that means that everything is mathematically calculated to be proportionate. So it's not going to be as pixel graphic editing capability heavy as Photoshop, but it will have the precision of Illustrator while still allowing you to control placement of items. That's the beauty of the layout design aspect of InDesign. And thirdly, you can use styles to create and format for HTML markup. So that's going to be a big portion of today's class, is how to use styles in InDesign to basically translate what you're needing in setting up your files for each of your pages for website creation to translate your consistent elements to a website. And I will break that down further, explain more of what I mean when we get into the software. but I did want to make sure I emphasized that we're not going to handle any coding. That is not a requirement for InDesign. It can be useful to have a background in it, but today what we are really focusing on is wireframing our design and setting up a prototype that you could then use as a placeholder for your business, placeholder for a blog, and hand off to, you could either use it in another platform for coding purposes, or you could hand off to another content creator to use as a baseline for functionality, for adding the coding specifics. Are there any questions about that before I move on?
We have no questions.
Okay. So first and foremost, when you're designing a website, you want to think about what are the common features, and then what are you wanting to use? What are you wanting to communicate to your users? So when you think of a website, there are three key aspects that are going to be on pretty much any website you bring up. So a header, which normally includes a logo. So that can be typically along the top. And then you also have your navigation. So navigation is going to be a menu that somehow allows you to navigate your website. So whether that's a menu that you have on the side, or a 3-bar hamburger that someone clicks and then displays, or if it's underneath your logo and it's just simply a menu bar. Those are things that you want to decide that you want to have, how you want to design and communicate that before you get into designing. And lastly, there is that footer. Now, your footer, typically, if you scroll on any website, it's going to have contact information. It'll have about information. It may have a copyright symbol or any kind of information like that. Okay. And when you're getting started, this is where I want to introduce these terms: wireframing. So wireframing is really, it's just outlining how you want your website to look, how you want it to be organized. It can be hand drawn. So if you have pen and paper, you can kind of outline your vision for your website. You can just draw like this example over here on the right. You can put your logo on there, your navigation. If you know how you want other aspects on your website to appear, if you're going to sell things, you can draw kind of how you want those images to display in icon format. You can have a search category over here. However you have that vision, you can do that either on paper or, as we are going to do today, digitally with Adobe InDesign. Now, prototyping. This is where you start adding in these interactive features. Now, interactivity, it's creating different states of design in which the user can actively engage with the design and change the states of the prototype. So by that, it means you could click on the logo, and no matter what page you're on, it would take you to the home page. It's features that add to the usability of your website. And even though InDesign is not robust in coding or anything like that, it does have some fun interactivity features, such as basic animation, really useful feature buttons that allow you to add these clickable features that are necessary for a website. Okay, so now if there's not any questions before we head to InDesign, I'm gonna go ahead and switch my screen over.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any questions yet.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So here I have Adobe InDesign open, and what we are going to do is actually create a new document. So in this panel, you can see it automatically goes to the recent form, but up here along the top, again, this is navigation within a software, but every application you open, everything that's web-based is a great way to identify things that you like about a design and think about how you can use that with your own. Okay, but we're going to go over here at the top. We're not going to use any save. We're not using this for print, and we're not going to get into mobile design just yet. We're going to go to web. And from these presets here, so you can click view all presets, and everything is in pixel measurements, and you want it to be pixel measurements because this is being viewed on a screen. Now, typically, I would say your best bet is going to be 800 by 600 or just 1280 by 800. Because this is just about how it's going to appear on a screen. I'm going to go ahead and select 1280 by 800. Because again, today we're just kind of mocking this up. We're doing a wireframe. We're going to add in some basic features for prototyping. And if you go over here to the preset details, I'm going to go ahead and change this title from untitled to website wireframe example. Now, you want to make sure it's in pixels. This is, if you're working with print or anything else, you'd want to use a more familiar measurement. But because this is something that is being viewed on the screen, you want to make sure you're working in pixels. If facing pages is checkmarked for you, you also want to make sure that that's not checked. Facing pages is only for print setup, so it's formats your pages in InDesign as for a book. So you want to make sure that's not checked. And right now we're going to leave this at 1 page. When we're actually in the document, we can add more pages. And even though you don't typically, we call websites web pages. Whenever you have a navigation to another site, you're adding another page to mock up in InDesign. And yes, we still have margins. And yes, we still have bleed and slug. Slug is really a print term. You don't have to worry about that. Bleed is just telling the software you want the image to, if there's any color or anything like that, to go all the way to the edge. Not necessary for our purposes today, so I'm going to leave it as is. If you're unsure of the size of anything, you can always click preview to view how this is going to look before you hit create. So moving that out of the way, you can kind of get a sense of what you're going to be working with. It looks fine to me, so I'm going to hit create. Were there any questions about that?
None at this time.
Okey-doke. Do feel free to ask me questions at any time during this process. All right. So some of the things that we're going to do to set up our workspace prior to jumping into the design, getting our wireframe set up, is up here at the top. If we go over to edit, we can go to preferences, and this pulls up pretty much all the features for InDesign. So if we just click anywhere, we can click general. You can access the other features in that list over here on the left. Now, if you just select units and increments, we want to make sure that this is still set to pixels. Stroke and points is fine. And the rest of this isn't going to affect anything. What I am chiefly concerned with is actually how our graphics will display. So we're going to go down here up from the bottom to display performance. And we want to make sure that the default view is set to high quality. This is because whenever you are viewing anything in the web, you don't want pixelated images. You don't want low resolution because our screens have surpassed, they don't do well with just a low quality image anymore. There's less we can get away with, if that makes sense. So you want to make sure that everything is going to be high resolution, high quality. And because it's digital and this isn't something we're printing, we don't have to worry about how that's going to affect the end result as much. This is still going to be a larger file size, but it's worth it. And if you have a good coder, that's something they can also help you with, but at least having it in high resolution and preserving that in InDesign is going to save you a lot of headaches in the future. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And now up here at the top, right next to the search bar for Adobe stock, we have what is called the switcher, the Workspace switcher. Right now it's set to Essentials Classic, and that's because my brain was trained by Microsoft at a very early age. So you see here up at the top, we have our ribbon. So whenever you select different tools over here on the left, that automatically changes to the tool over here. And then we have our panels here on the right. Now your switcher here organizes your workspace. Now we're working with interactive elements, and I already did pull some of those aside, but if you don't have a workspace that's really preset to anything just yet, I would recommend going through this and finding what you're comfortable with. Or if you do find that it doesn't have all the tools that you want, doesn't have all the panels that you want, you can actually do a new workspace, save it, and by going up here to Window, so we'll just name this Web Design. Going up here to Window, you can actually pull open all of the different panels. So some of the key features I would say that are necessary are going to be definitely align. This tool here just saves you a lot of headaches in the future. That way you're not constantly having to drag and try and line up by eye. You can just click a button and InDesign will do it for you. Now, this still doesn't have, it has some interactive features. Here's this button and forms aspect I mentioned earlier that we're going to use quite a bit today. But what we are actually chiefly missing are our styles. Now I just want to take a moment and make sure I have everything from here. I'm going to go ahead and add liquid layout to my panels over here. Let's see here. Liquid layout is going to help us translate the design of our website to another format while still staying within the same document. Now, our next thing that I want to add to our workspace is going to be styles. And we are going to want these three. We want character, object, and paragraph. Now, if you're going to add a table to your website, feel free to add those. This is really just what I'm comfortable with, what I like, what I know I like working with. Okay, so once you have your workspace set up, this is where we get to begin our wireframing process. So as I mentioned earlier, a website chiefly should have at least 3 features. Should have your header. So if you click the black arrow and click along the top ruler, you can have a guide. So if you know right away that in your design you want to have a header and you want it to come down a certain length or width, you can go ahead and set a guide so that your eye is ready for that. So we have a header, we have a footer, and we have a navigation bar. So I'm going to go ahead on this page, set where I think I would want my header and footer. And if you're not seeing this ruler along the edge, just make sure you go up to the menu bar for view, and you can actually see grids and guides, and you want to make sure that everything here is checkmarked that you need. And if it says unhide rulers, make sure that that's selected. So if you don't work in InDesign very often, if you don't have all your features set up, it's just a good thing to double check and select from under that panel, that menu option. Okay, now I've got a baseline for header, footer, but if I'm going to add pages and have multiple pages in my document, then I don't necessarily want to have to do this for every single page. And that's where the beautiful thing known as master pages comes in. So if you open the panels pages, typically it's up here at the top, right? And you double click that A master. On all pages that you create, it'll start with that A. Now, if you have multiple master pages, then you can click and drag and apply different styles to your pages in your document. What a master page is a page that you can have consistent design elements on there. It's essentially you can put style elements on there and then click and apply them to any pages in your document that you need. So in this case, if we're going to do headers and footers, we can just go ahead and have it on our master page and apply it to all the pages that need it. So that's every page in our document, easy peasy. At least then we know we don't have to recreate it on every single page, and we know that it will stylistically be the same. So again, we're just going to click at that top ruler and drag until we kind of find where we want that header to be. And then click and drag again for that footer. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it for what I see on the page, what I think I like. And this could end up being way too much space because this is a lot of pixels and things translate onto the web very differently. But that's okay. That's part of wireframing, is just sort of outlining what you see, what you think you'll want, and kind of editing as you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rectangle frame tool over here from my tool panel, and I'm going to start mocking up some elements. So I think I want my logo. I thought I wanted it in that corner, but actually I think I'm going to go ahead and just put it here in the center. So it has that X there. So if I want to later import a graphic, I would do what is file place. And if you want it centered in your document, this is a really simple feature of InDesign. You can drag until you see that pink vertical line. If you wanted it centered in the document, you could drag down until you see that horizontal line right there. But I just want it centered at that top and that space for the header. So if you have a logo, if you have any kind of consistent image that you want on the page, you can use tools like this to make it easier for you to consistently place your elements. Now, one thing to note for things that you're putting on your master page, if you click and go back to your regular page, you can't adjust where this is. The only way to do that would be to Control-Shift-Click, and then you could edit and move. The only time you really want to do that is if you're editing body, content, or paragraph items. Otherwise, it's really nice just to kind of leave your consistent elements that are on your master page alone. but it is always a good idea to know how to fix or edit or adjust things as necessary. Okay, so we have a spot for a logo. Now, just here at the bottom, I'm going to take the text tool here and I'm going to just click and drag, not really too concerned on how the size is going to work or anything like that. I'm going to click that black arrow and I'm using Control-C on my keyboard and Control-V to make a copy of that text box. And again, I love InDesign's layout possibilities. This is why it's great for wireframing, is you can get things aligned really, really well. So these green lines here are identifying the top and bottom of the other text box I already have. So if I line it up there and then just Control-V again, I'm just kind of playing around with some different concepts here. And one more time. What I don't have right now is equidistant between these. So I'm going to click and highlight all 4 of those. I'm going to go down to my Align panel here, and you can actually distribute spacing between them equally, consistently. So as you can see, there was a micro adjustment. I wasn't that far off, which that's kind of amazing. My line of sight is not always the best. So that's kudos for me. Now, again, with all of them highlighted, you can kind of drag until you see that pink line. So they're centered. So you have that equidistant on either side, because what you have is the same distributed space for item selected. Now, what I was doing here, if I double click now on that item, I'm just trying to demonstrate the elements of a footer. So you could have contact info here. You could have about info here. And again, just site accessibility info here. Links and things. Again, this is all about what your website's going to need, how your business is broken down, who your audience is, and what you think they might need. So if you are trying to operate a website to sell content, you may want to include down here return info. You may want to include things specific about the shop. And this is just a generic list of things that I'm putting down here. So whatever consistent information you will need for your website, you want to make sure that that's going to consistently be viewed on each page. And that's why I'm putting it on the master page. Now, just a fun reminder that whatever tool you have selected, if you click and try and do things, it's going to create a text box if you have the text box open, if you have the wireframe tool. So if I wanted to go back and adjust the size of this rectangle, I need to make sure I click the black arrow, because otherwise I'm going to do that all day. You won't be able to move anything. So click the black arrow, or generally if you hit escape on your keyboard, and this is whether it's a Windows or a Mac, it should default back to the black arrow. And then lo and behold, edit features are available. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and have some navigation at the top here. So I think what I like is I'm going to add in kind of like a search bar here at the top. And I'll fill that in. So beautiful, beautiful thing about InDesign is that if you already have in your logo like a set of colors for your business, for your company, you can actually save that in the Creative Cloud libraries. So if you have a set of swatches or anything like that, you can actually save it to your library as a style, and that will go with your document wherever you go. So what I'm going to do here is actually take these pre-saved swatches and well, hey now, if you do a new color swatch, which there it is, if you're going to add a new color, make sure it's in RGB because we're not printing. CMYK Pantone is only for printing. Anything on the web is going to be Roy G. Biv. So we want to make sure that's selected. And I'm just going to make some crazy color. Kind of fun. Woohoo! That fun kind of purple. I like it. We're going to add that. Excellent. We're done. And then what you can do with that folder is put the selected swatches in it, say OK, excellent. You can actually drag that to your CC libraries, OK. Create new library, OK. lib1, OK. Skip. And actually what you can do, well, that's create a new group. I meant to add elements. So you can add that fill color that you just created there. Sometimes it will let you, when it's not being finicky, just drag from your swatches into the CC panels. I probably just didn't do it correctly, but there's a million different ways to do the same thing. So don't be discouraged. Don't ever be discouraged. I'm actually going to resize this now to right there, just above it. And this purple color is actually a bit bright, so I'm actually going to change it to no fill. When you're designing your website as well, think about your colors, but also think about how is it viewed? Is it easier on the eyes? Keep those elements in mind as you're designing. So what I'm going to do now is actually adjust my text frames here to create some navigation. And if you double click on that, you can then type in. So I'm going to make a home button with this. And if you find you don't like the font, you can scroll up and you can actually filter it down. Now, I would recommend for website design to limit your use of serif fonts, and serif are those fonts that have a little tail at the end. I would limit that to your header. Any kind of headline that you're using, if you're going to go for an impact, try to limit it to sans serif font for everything else. Sans serif is much easier to view on the screen. It has something to do with the fact that for print material, most books that you pick up will have a serif font like this one here. So think Times New Roman, Gothic script, anything like that that's print-based, you will see that serif font. On the screen, sans serif. So if we select that and that, it actually narrows down. It'll filter our font options for us based on that. Now, honestly, there's more options than what they have listed here. So if you don't want necessarily that, here we go. You can scroll through, find a font that you like, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and jump into a style. I'm kind of happy. I'm digging this Sego, but it's a little thin, a little thinner than I think I like. I want something clear and easy to read, so I think I'm just going to stick with Myriad Pro. The nice thing about Myriad Pro is it is, I want to say it's part of the type kit, which means it should translate online as well. However, if you're not sure about the support of the font that you're selecting, a good resource to take advantage of is Google Fonts. Google has a number of fonts online that are available for free, free for download, and you can import any of those onto your computer and it will apply itself to the Adobe software. So for my purposes, I'm going to select Myriad Pro and I'm going to go ahead and increase that font size to something visually appealing. And then the next step I'm going to do is actually right click and use fitting to fit frame to content. There's no reason to have a frame that is bigger than your needs. So again, I'm just going to drag that up until I kind of find where I want it to be and click, copy, paste. That was an accidental right click, sorry y'all. And you're just going to build your navigation panel. Those helpful green lines, but it's okay even if you don't have it aligned. And I'll show you in just a moment. So shift and click to select multiple text boxes. Going back down to our align panel, use that align vertically, excellent, and then distribute spacing. Cool, with all of them selected. We just wait till we see that purple line. Awesome. Okay. So with that aligned, what we can do now is actually, if you select the content of your text box, we're going to add a character style. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to double click that character style one. It's going to open this character style options menu and we're creating new. As you can see right here, it has style settings, none plus Myriad Pro, size 20. And we're actually just going to name that H1. If you know a little bit about coding, whenever you get into code, it's broken up by lines of code. I am not an expert. I know a very small amount about coding, a lot about design, very little about coding. But if you can match style names with lines of code, it'll make it easier when you export this to HTML at the end for someone versed in code to take your style elements and convert and apply consistently the same style to all of the elements that you've indicated in this document, if that makes sense. Are there any questions about anything I've mentioned so far?
We don't have any questions so far.
Okie doke. All right. So we're just going to save this. I think black is fine for our purposes today. And we're going to select OK. And now that has updated. OK. So we can actually go through, highlight, and select that character style. So just for instance, if we were to change this to Arial, and it's got that red plus sign to indicate that it's too big for the field anyhow, that it's got overset text. Well, even if you select it with your text tool and you do Control A to select it all and you change it to H1, it defaults back to that character style. So it's very useful for creating similar styles as necessary in your document. All right. So again, this is just wireframing. It's getting the ideas of how you want things outlined on your website on the page. So we're going to go back up to pages and we're going to actually check out our first page. So as you can see, everything has applied. Now just to, again, demonstrate what I mean, if you create a new page and go to that second page, it matches your first. It has that consistent element that you're looking for. Now, again, for wireframing, we're really wanting to lay out the goals for how we want things designed. A lot of people like designing things in grid because it helps as a reminder of how we read things. We read things left to right and up and down, or from up to down. So that's sometimes referred to as an F model because the letter F is vertical and it has that line up at the top and 2 lines. So typically when someone reads information on a page in a book, but really this applies for web design, is someone looks across and then they go down across and then they tend to scroll down the rest of the page. So you want that top portion of your website to be really dynamic, to contain navigation information, information that the user of your website will need quickly. So as
I did have a question that came in.
Awesome. Yeah, what you got?
So they're asking if you could put in a logo so we could see what that looks like. And also, what are the parts in navigation besides home?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I can do that. So if you're going to place in a logo, I'm going to jump back to that master page. Placing items, you can either go up to File and Place right here, or use the keyboard shortcut of Control D or Command D if you're on a Mac. So Control D. And okay. Let me see if I can find an image that will work fairly well. I'm going to use a logo. It's not mine. It's not one I've created, but I want to demonstrate how this works. So sometimes when you load images into InDesign, it's going to be like, this doesn't match my frame that I created. So what you do is right click again and bring up that fitting option and fit content proportionally. So this is the Cricut logo. If you know what a Cricut machine is, I'm just using this as an example. So it's very simple. You have the colors green and white here. And what I would do at this point is take this eyedropper tool over here for color theme tool. And if you click on that, it's going to save you a lot of trouble. You can actually add all of these swatches to your list. You can even add this theme to my current CC library. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now you can see we have a consistent color frame, and it actually matches the name of our file. So this is really useful. It's a lot of fun. What it doesn't do is it's not going to automatically appear in your swatches. That's okay though, because you can still access everything as necessary, or you can even just add this theme to swatches next. Let's check our swatches panel again. colorful theme. Scroll down. Oh, hey now. There we go. Now it's in your swatches panel. But adding it to your libraries is important just in case you ever want to edit elements of your website in another creative cloud software like Dreamweaver or Illustrator or even Photoshop. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to click my black arrow again. And for the different aspects of navigation, so you could have about, and don't be concerned if that red arrow pops up, because what we can do is just right click on it later, have that fitting option, fit content to frame, or frame to content, and much easier than you trying to fix it yourself. So you can have home, you can have about, you can have visit if you have a visit location. That could also be under about information. If you have a shop, you can have shop. If you're going to have a blog option, you could do blog. If you were trying to create a website for a home business, like a home bakery business, you could include like a menu option as part of your navigation. There is no set verbiage that you have to absolutely use whenever you're designing your navigation panel. The options are endless. It's going to be about what are the needs of your business and what are the needs of your user for finding information quickly. Website design is all about usability. So first and foremost, you want to make sure, yes, aesthetically pleasing, that's always a plus, but is it usable? So in this case, you could also include things like social media. You could include external links. It's really a very fluid concept, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question for how to do those two things?
So I think it does, but I will let you know when she responds.
Good deal. It was a great question. Thank you for asking.
She said, yes, it does make sense.
Wonderful. And sometimes fitting to content doesn't do what you want it to. And you just, adjust as necessary. So we're just using that fun fit framed content. Sometimes it still doesn't like me, and that's okay. It's allowed to not. And using your keyboard, if you just do Control Plus, you can zoom in a little closer, and sometimes that helps get that adjustment that you need. Fit framed content, wonderful. Control minus to zoom back out. Now, we only have about 12 minutes left, and I really want to make sure that I show you guys how to add in those interactive elements and apply some more styles. So something important for your navigation bar that you can do, and even your logo at the top on your master page. So if you go down here to buttons and forms, and you have this object selected, you can actually select button. You can rename it to, in this case, I'm going to do logo home. And on release or tap or on click, you can add an action. And for this, you can have go to page. A lot of these, so PDF only, don't worry about that. EPUB only is not necessarily true, but I would say for the purposes of web design, you're going to get the most accurate effect by only using these first options before EPUB. So what we are going to do here is you can actually load in your URL for the home page here. So if you do URL, that's where you then add in your URL here. So I'm just going to type a dummy one in for now, home.org. And there is an appearance to it, but if you're just keeping it normal and it's only on click, there's nothing that has to happen to that image. Now, however, because this is on our master page, it'll be applied to all of your pages you create. You have an easy default image that was created. So that's how you would create a button. And actually, for every other aspect of your navigation bar, it's one way you can add that navigation option, buttons and forms in your panel, change it to type, a button, home button, on click, add your action, and you can either match it to be a go to URL or go to destination. I would just do go to URL. And there you are. If you select the next option, it automatically will restart that buttons and forms panel, button, about page, link, on release or tap, on click, add action, and so if you were to create in your InDesign document the about page next, for the purpose of your prototype, you could actually say go to next page. If you have a website and you are going to have distinct URL for each page, then you can easily build this to be go to URL, and that's the page that you're creating for it. For that, you're looking at probably creating multiple files and naming it as such, and then having someone code it in for your website. It's a little confusing and it's kind of hard to explain, but you have to remember that we're just wireframing and we're just trying to build in some prototypes for this website concept right now. So I think that illustrates what we're trying to do. So for this purpose, I think I'm going to do next page. I'm going to leave the others alone. We're going to go here to pages. And now for this second page that we have built, this is where I want to show some other style options here. So if we have our text tool enabled, and because this is not going to be the same on every page, we don't need to worry about this being on a master page. So we're going to type about, I'm going to Control A for everything in there, and I'm just going to increase the size of this font to something like 50 because I want this to be a header. And now I'm going to change my font. I'm not going to match the navigation because I want to show how you can incorporate different styles of font. But I do want to make sure it's open type. So I liked this one earlier. Let's use this one. Okay. And if you find it's still not quite big enough, you just play and mess with that until you find what you're looking for. And if the style of your company is actually one where a serif font would fit, it's okay to do your larger font with a serif. Again, just think about it stylistically. Think about how your user is going to read it. So you could easily change this to a serif font, but then I would recommend that you design your paragraph, your article font with sans serif, just because of readability. Now, again, we're just wireframing, so we're trying to just outline kind of what we're seeing we need on this web page. a fun feature of InDesign, so you don't have to have everything ready at the get-go. Is under type, you can select fill with placeholder text. So up again from this type menu at the top left of the screen, if you go down to second from the bottom of that menu, click fill with placeholder text, you have text to help you with that wireframing and prototyping. Now, this is where I'm going to go back to black arrow, and because it's InDesign and my favorite thing is to have everything aligned, I'm going to get that green arrow, have it aligned to the left, and now we're going to have some fun with character styles and paragraph styles. So for character, I'm going to create a new character with this. Double click, open that field again, and it's going to be my header, H2. Second header style. You want to make sure it matches what you need. Character color. I'm actually going to scroll down and I want it to match my logo. So this is where I love this option screen. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And okay, it'll automatically adjust it. And so if you create subsequent pages for your other links, if you want to follow some sort of consistent design element, you can always apply that second style. And you do not, again, have to name it this. Just make sure that your names have a consistent naming convention. Now we're double clicking on that placeholder text, and we're going to go ahead and make it something sans serif. So I'm going to go back to my Myriad Pro. It would help if I could type. We're just going to select, let's try something different. Let's do light. Okay. And we're going to, again, create a new style. Because this is paragraph, I'm going to call this, P1 for paragraph style 1. We're going to say okay. And now I'm actually going to open the paragraph styles panel, and I'm going to create a new one, and double clicking this. Brings you that paragraph style options window. So you can actually base this off of a character style. So if you go to that basic character formats, it'll have all the current features of the text aligned, which is nice. I would recommend, if you're very new to this, just scroll through, take a look, and just get yourself familiar with it. There's a lot of fun features. So if you needed a specific style of paragraph with it, any rules to add, it's a great way to just kind of mess with it and see what you can do. Now, I would say the most useful is going to be to know the justification of the top 3, 4 maybe. And drop caps is going to be important. This is a very easy way to add this consistently to your document. And it's a nice feature, but again, not necessary. So adding 4 lines affecting 1 character for a drop cap is kind of fun. You can also create that as its own separate style or build it into this one like we are. For the purposes of our website design, we are going to make sure we add this export tagging for EPUB and HTML, because at the end of this, I want to make sure we export to HTML. So we're going to include tagging. So it's tagged to P, it's a paragraph style 1, and it retains all of those features. So this is getting added to that HTML format when we export. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to leave it as paragraph style 1 for now. And this is why you may want to add the drop cap as its own style. So opening that back up, we're going to actually turn that off. So going back to that drop cap option, we're just gonna actually turn that off. We're gonna say that there's no drop cap and okay. We'll add one new one. So we're gonna double click that paragraph style 1 and then go to drop cap, and it's going to be applied to that P1 style, and it's only going to affect one line and one character, and we'll select OK. So now if we select that one item, apply paragraph style 2, it may not work because of the contrasting styles, but in general, if you want to take a little bit more time with it and mess with it, you can get it to do what you want. Because it's already 2, and I don't want to end this class without showing you guys how to export this and also to test some of the prototyping features. I'm going to go ahead and go up here to File and then go to Export. We're going to export the name to website wireframe. It's going to be HTML. That's all the other options you have here. You could do an InDesign markup, just do HTML. It's easier. We're going to save. And from here, it says selection document. We're going to do the document formatting options. If you had any lists, this is where you would click that drop down and you have options. You don't really have to mess with any of that. What you want to make sure you do is optimize your copy images. If you want things to be specific, you can select that. We do want SVG options, and our resolution we want to increase up to 300. What we're doing is setting it to 300 dpi. And image size, fixed is fine, and the rest of this is fine. And okay. And now we can kind of preview our current page. So is it perfect? Absolutely not. Did it switch to the web view for y'all, or are you still in InDesign?
So we are still in InDesign.
Okay, that's totally fine. So when you convert something to HTML in InDesign, it gives you the option to view it afterwards. So because we didn't have quite enough time to finish our first page, let me show you what happened with this version. So okay, so here you can see that a portion of it has translated to the web browser, and all we're trying to do is prototype it. Now, when I exported, I was a little sloppy, and so my first features didn't appear. However, this is a better way to test your features is actually this share button at the very top of InDesign next to your workplace switcher. You can actually publish online. There's also another export option there, export shortcut. A window can pop up for publish your document online. I would not use this for your actual website. This is being hosted off of the Adobe server. There's limitations there. It works. I would use it for testing your examples and making sure it's being viewed the way you want. So if we were to publish this document, excellent. And we go to view document, and let me adjust my share again to show you guys. So this is how Adobe would publish this. Kind of gives you the option to view each page as such. if I had had a little bit more time, I would show you how to retain these functions. As you can see up here on the second page, we had that button that worked. And it's not a workable link, so it redirected to something that doesn't exist. But it's a great way to test your prototype features, make sure your buttons work the way that you want them to. I hope this helps you get started with web design. There's so much that goes into web creation, and the first part of it is just simply starting with your wireframe, starting with your prototype, and really figuring out what content you need to have on there for your business and what your users will need whenever they're accessing your content. I hope you found this useful, and I hope if you have any more questions, ask me now while you got me. Otherwise, feel free to set up a book a librarian appointment through the Plano Public Library if you have more questions. That is a feature that's available to you. And I hope you guys have a great day. Unless there's any other questions. Yeah? Any other questions? Anything?
I'm not seeing any right now.
Okay. Well, you guys have been awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you guys have a great day. Please take the survey at the end of this class. Let us know what more you'd like to see. Okay.